What's up, Albatross Disc Golf? Welcome to this week's episode of The Nest. I'm like your second host, Dan, and this is my homie Mike. And today I was doing the intro because we just decided to, shake it up a bit.
I think I lost my
Um,
job.
I think so. I mean,
Dan always gives me crap that I stare at the screen like I'm gonna hurt somebody. So you know what? If you think you can do better, do it. And I think
heck, I did it.
think he did. So whatever. Okay, we have a lot to get into. Dan, were you done with your intro? Was there more?
And I think we're good.
Okay, cool. We have a lot to get into, guys. Real quick. First off, and gonna take us into our first conversation. The NADGT National Championship happened last weekend. We're not going to say much about what happened because we have a lot of other things we want to discuss. But Mike McGrath took it down, $10,000. Congrats to him. Dan, it sounds like you said he was going to decline at first.
Yeah. From what I heard, and I don't know for sure. This is just kind of what I heard around, but I heard that what he was going to decline at first. And for a lot of people, that's a lot of question marks just because it is $10,000. I mean, this is more money than some of the pros have won all year on tour, which is crazy. Um, cool, but crazy. And the only reason I could think that he might choose to do that is I think he's still young enough to play Junior Worlds next year.
Wow.
So if you wanted to win a world championship as a junior, you'd have to decline cash. But I don't
The,
know.
the thing I wouldn't get about that is he's the second highest rated player in the tournament. Like, he knew he had a good chance to win this. Like, if you're gonna play it, you think you have a good chance to win, and you win, and you don't take it. I just would be kind of confused. But
Yeah.
sounds like he took it. Congrats to him. I'm sure we'll see lots of him in the future. He killed it. I mean, it looks like for some reason they don't have the semifinals on here. I'm just looking round one, two, and threes
I,
on there.
I'm not sure if that happened. I don't know why it's listed on the PDGA like that. I just don't think it was around. I
So
think there
there
was
was
only
just
like
four
four
rounds.
rounds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So he averaged like 10 20ish, 10 high teens. So he played really well, took it down, young kid, lots of talent, super
Mhm.
exciting. That is not what we're going to mostly talk about. We, as most other people, if they were following, saw a lot of pushback from people that were there, some people that weren't there, about some
Yep.
issues with the event, specifically player packs and that end of the spectrum. We did want to get more detailed and kind of find out about it. So we did reach out to NADGT, and Dan, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so we reached out and basically by email just asked for, like a statement or just a clarification on a few things. And for those of you who don't know, Dave Feldberg is actually he runs the tour. I think owner is what you consider him of NAGDT.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the ownership works. On their website, I think it says CEO. I'm not
Okay.
positive, but yeah,
So
the
something to that
founder for
nature.
sure. Founder for
Founder,
sure.
right. So Dave Feldberg actually reached back out to us and offered to have a phone call with us and chat about some of the things that went wrong, went right, some of the misconceptions, and just kind of clear the air for us. So I thought that was a testament to, what he's trying to do here. And I'd like to just say we have no affiliation to NADDT. This was strictly just, reaching out to get a few comments. And he reached out and wanted to have a phone call. And so we did that. So we have kind of the insider scoop, and we're going to be talking about that and sharing some of the things he said and sharing our opinions on that. So I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think it's going to make for some good content for you guys.
Yeah. Before we get ahead of ourselves, and we'll get into the details as we go, but just a kind of a overview of people's concerns, comments. And there were a lot of good things. First off, even
Mhm.
before we talked to him, we knew there were a lot of good things about the event. But some of the bad things were people were very underwhelmed by some player packs that they got. The player packs were promised to be $350 to $400, and people were very questioning of that amount. I'm not again. I'm only pretty much saying the bads, and we're gonna get into all of it. But I just want people to be aware. Another thing was food was an issue. They were told all lunches were going to be provided for them, and that fell short. It seemed, based on people's feedback. And then, Dan, was there anything else?
Um,
I think those were the two main things,
yeah,
really.
those were the two main things. And there were a few parking
Yeah.
issues. with the event, but like
We'll
I
get
said, we'll
into
talk
that
about all those things. So
for sure. So yeah, we have a list of things here that just basically took the conversation that Dan had with Dave, super long, in-depth conversation, really productive, and we just kind of got some bullet points. Some of these will make it clear whether it's kind of an opinion on our end or specifically from Dave himself. But yeah, Dan, let's just jump into it. Go ahead with the first
yeah.
point.
So the first one is we'll just talk about the different sponsors. There were, Dave said 47 sponsors and 15 different manufacturer sponsors, which is crazy, but also really good to see in an amateur event. Like it's
Yeah.
awesome to see that many different companies stepping in and supplying either, I would assume both product and some kind of money to fund the event.
Yeah, for sure.
And so player packs, and we'll get into some other things about player packs later, but one of the gripes people had were, having brands that aren't quite as either A, popular, or B, not quite as sought after. Um, and the problem with that is if you're gonna have this many different manufacturers, you're gonna have to spread that out evenly and just kind of mix it up. And when you're getting a player pack, sometimes you're gonna get, a putter you may not have heard of before, or a disc you may not have heard of before. And that's just the reality of the situation. And without all of these different sponsors and manufacturers, you wouldn't be able to have the event you put on. Um, so I understand, maybe not getting, the most cool Innova disc in your player pack and having something you may not have heard of, but I think that's just kind of an expectation you have to understand when you're playing an event like this with this many sponsors and of this caliber.
Yeah, Dan already said it basically. Like for me, this was one of the few things that when I saw it happening, just based on people's feedback, this is one of the things that didn't bother me at all personally. When you have that many and then what Dave said kind of cemented it to where if you have this many sponsors, like if great, okay, you just really need a top three, like a Discraft, a Innova, a Prodigy, like whatever. Okay, that's fine, but now there's three sponsors instead of 17, and this tournament won't be what it is, So you have to balance it. There were some kind of questions, complaints about even from what I understand within divisions of people getting like different amount of discs, some premium, some baseline, things like that. That is kind of interesting, and we'll get into more of the player pack specifically in a little bit. But to me, this isn't really anything. I mean, the fact I think this is one of the things you should take the good instead of the maybe bad. The fact that this many companies, both in the disc golf world and outside, were willing to sponsor and help provide stuff for this tournament is incredible.
I agree.
You can say what you want about the event or about the way
Some of the
people, yeah,
logistics.
exactly. But at the end of the day, their ability to get these sponsors was really impressive. So
Right.
that's all I really have to say about that one. So the next one was kind of getting more into the player pack. So that was the biggest gripe from players. A lot of people got some pretty lackluster player packs and were questioning the dollar amount. Some people posted pictures of like, I got one disc, this, and this. Like I did the math and it's only like $110. Where's the rest? And there was some not really unified announcement, but kind of just like grapevine that like, hey, you're gonna get a cooler in bag two. We're gonna ship it to you. Colt Breck is a huge person within NADGT, helps out Dave a lot from what it seems like, and I did see he commented somewhere on that. I think it was like someone's comment on an NADGT post. And he said, keep in mind, like a lot of you guys are gonna get coolers and or bags, so that is gonna bump it up a little bit. Dan obviously had the conversation and can explain a little bit better of that situation.
Yeah, and at the time we don't know exactly what's in this coming announcement where they basically said they're going to
Mm-hmm.
clear up a few more things. Um, but from what I understand, is these coolers and bags are coming to players, which is a significant chunk of the expected value in which the player pack is. And one thing, uh, and I don't. It wasn't clear to me if they were supposed to have this in person or not. But basically, what Dave said to me is it would be easier for us to ship it to them because many players are traveling by plane or buy a car full of four other people that is already filled to the brim because you're trying to make it as cheap as possible, and you wouldn't have room to fit four disc golf bags, either A in your car or even bring another one on the plane. So Dave just said we're going to ship those out to everybody, and that's going to be where a bulk of their player pack um, comes from. I also think they should have been a little bit more transparent on, hey, this is still coming. Don't, because it seems like from online, people just don't know it's coming. Like
Yeah.
they literally thought what they got is what they got,
Yep.
which isn't the case.
Yep.
Like more of these things are coming to them, um, and I don't know the timeline, or I hope there's more details in this coming update for them. Um, but yeah, it is coming for them, and that is obviously going to take up the bulk and going to be kind of like that trademark item in their player pack.
Yeah. It's a little unclear to me. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. We don't really have exact information on which divisions are getting this pack and which aren't. It's a little unclear. The packs were pretty significantly different from division to division. Part of that sounds like it was on purpose. The other part that Dave did bring up, and it does make some sense, is when you have what it was like almost 1,300 players. I think I'm looking right now, 1,268 players.
Yep.
Just in general, and then especially if we think about how hard plastic's been to come by and shortages and stuff, to expect an event to have the exact same player pack for all of these players probably isn't realistic.
No.
In a perfect world, sure, but I know even Ledgestone had a little bit of issues with player packs this year. And that's a well-oiled machine. I mean, that we've never really heard any problems from that event. So
It's as good as it comes.
yeah, an event that went from 86 people 2 years ago to 1,300 this year, like, and we see some other potential kind of snags in the procedures of things. This is probably to be expected.
Yeah.
To the point of Dan's comment about the statement. The statement was made yesterday, so Tuesday, the 2nd. And it just said, "Dear competitors, due to some of the feedback we received about player packs, there's a chance that something could be missing from your box due to human error." Now they're saying human error, and Dave said that again on the phone, I believe. Dan, did he?
Yeah.
This, and they're gonna clear this up, but like the bag and cooler thing wouldn't be human error in my opinion, unless he's considering human error the fact that they didn't get it ordered in time or something like that. So that to me is a little I don't want to say misleading, but like not really to me
Addressing that
yeah,
situation.
and so maybe there's a second thing that we don't know about, or that
I think there is. He did
okay,
mention something
okay,
um, within the smaller divisions where they have missed out on something that um, he said he's going to release in this next
okay,
update. And I don't know what that is, but he did say something was missing. He is
sure.
aware of that, and that was the human error
Okay,
part.
that makes sense. And
So
then to continue on, we will be posting exact player pack values per division for each product, including within your package. We'll post this information as soon as possible. They go on to thank everybody. They haven't, as of 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, depending on your time zone, Wednesday evening, they haven't posted anything about it. They have posted like 6 other things showing stuff about the tournament and like thank yous to like these events, and so they're posting other stuff. They haven't posted this. Personally, for me, if I think it'd be in their best interest to just kind of go blank until they get that in, just to show that they're serious about it. That's my own opinion. So I guess we're gonna give our overall opinions at the end of everything we talk about, but just quickly, like for me, I think just if they would have done a better job of telling the masses of what exactly was happening with these packs, we wouldn't be seeing nearly any of these like complaints.
yeah,
We'll keep going. I'll give my full thought, but that's I think that's all we really had to say on the bags. Yeah.
yeah,
So the other thing, I'm kind of skipping around, but the next point we had was Dave did confirm, and this is, I mean, he did state that every player pack, one way or another, did exceed the $350 as promised based on retail price. He is saying that was before adding food. And with food, it was up to the 370, 375 range. And that was being very, basically not counting food as much as he could have for the player pack is what he was
It's
saying.
not scaling it to the
Yeah,
price in which
exactly.
honestly should.
Exactly, sure. So I think one thing everybody needs to understand about player pack values is um, retail price might be different than what you can find it for, right? So if
Yes.
Dan and I wanted to go get a grip bag right now, and I go to their website and they're on sale because it's a fall sale,
Sure.
or if I go on Amazon and find one from a unauthorized seller for a certain price, Dave, if he put it in the pack, can go in and see the actual full non-sale price on grip, or even slightly higher because he's now a second distributor, and he can put it at a retail price. So just because you can find it on sale or whatever discounted with a coupon code somewhere, we know how things work. Like there's some companies that you can find something on sale all year long, and
And
that's
that's
not.
just the price.
Yeah, exactly. So he's saying that everybody got that, and I think he's going to try to explain that better in that post that hopefully is coming.
Yeah.
But and just so everyone is aware, like it's very kosher and very allowed and should happen really if you're providing food for all these players. That does come out of the player pack.
Yes.
One thing that you can't take out of player packs is um, or count towards player packs is if you have a discount code that you have to buy something to access. So if you gave me a get $50 off with a purchase of $5, you can't count that towards the player pack if you have to
Okay.
buy something. Now, it sounds like some people were saying some of those were in there. Whether that was counted or not, we don't know. There was
Okay.
also some that weren't. That was just a straight up $15 code that you could not have to buy anything. So there's a lot of uncertainties. And again, I think this is just kind of like just failure to really address it beforehand and get it out instead of people finding out. Again, we'll have to wait and see what that post looks like at the end, and hopefully it's really specific. But that's kind of where we're at with that. Um, Dan, do you have anything else on that part?
Yeah. And one thing I would like to mention is there's some custom work done on both the
Yes.
cooler and the bag, which does add to the price. And Dave even said, I didn't charge the full price in which it costs to get custom stuff done.
Yep.
Like I lost a little money in that part. So I think that's something to know. And it does add value to the retail price of the bag, which I guess it's just something you have to understand.
The I've ran events, and I'm planning to run a lot of events moving forward. It's something I really enjoy doing, and it's kind of the core of the albatross kind of business. Um, Player packs are kind of tricky just because retail price is there's no real retail price, especially once you start putting your own stuff on it. I mean, full transparency, I could get custom discs from Innova with a custom albatross stamp, and if I throw them on my website for $50, I can say that that's the retail price. Now, I wouldn't do that, and people wouldn't probably want to come to my tournaments anymore if I did that. But there's that. So, again, I think it's really important that they put this post out just so. Normally, I wouldn't say that. Like, for an event, I don't think it's necessary for a TD to be, hey, here's dollar for dollar, everything. Like, as long as there's no concerns, I don't think people should worry about it. But in this situation, when there is a lot of questions and kind of failures to um, present it correctly with some stuff coming later, some stuff forgotten, I think this is really important that they do post that. But yeah, that's what I want to say about retail, just because I have some personal experience with it. Um,
Yeah.
the next thing we have written down is one other thing that people kind of griped or made comment is that there was only in-person payout. Um, the only thing I have to say about this one, Dave did say that he is going to be accommodating for players who had to leave early or didn't know if they were going to cash. There's situations where, depending on how you play and how people play behind you don't even know if you're cashing, so you're not going to wait or don't want to wait. Especially some people couldn't wait with flights, and who knows.
Right.
He said he's going to be accommodating and they can get an infinite disc script for that. He kind of defended NADGT there, saying that it was never stated it was infinite disc payout. Um, for me, every single event from what I'm aware of is infinite disc payout up to this point. So while yeah, it wasn't stated, it's probably assumed by a lot of people. That's
Yeah.
that's my take on it. Dan, did you have any more, or did he say anything else about that?
The only thing that pops out to me, and like I said, I don't know this for sure, but when you have players when the payout was as steep as it was, like I mean, you look at the payouts and the payouts were good.
Yeah.
There was a lot of money that went into this event, and it all went back into the payouts. So the payouts were good, and when you have that amount of like when players are getting $300, like I don't know how much Infinite can be like, all right, here we will absorb all of that, and that will all come from us. Like I don't know if Infinite could even do that. And I know Dave went through a lot of work of getting enough stock in to have this in-person payout, which I think is something is good for NADDT, and it's a testament to how hard he was working because it is insanely hard to get all these things during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Me and Mike know firsthand running some events, trying to get in-person plastic. It is hard. And we were just trying to get plastic when you're getting
For small
bags,
events.
basket for small events, right? When you're putting on an event for 1,300 people and you're trying to get baskets, bags, plastic, apparel, all that sort of stuff, it's hard. So I know NADDT and Dave went to a lot of lengths to make sure that was available to players, and I don't know if Infinite could really absorb all of that.
Yeah.
So, like he said, it was never stated that it was Infinite disc payout, but I personally would probably be inclined to believe that it was just with how everything's ran in the past. But he told me he's already been accommodating to a lot of the players that have reached out and said, hey, I missed it or whatever the case may be. He's um, accommodating that. He said he's already done that already
Yeah.
for a lot of players. So I don't know if that's a huge issue. A little miscommunication again, I think, on their end, but I think that's one of the things they've handled really well.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That's all I have on my list. Dan, do you have anything else before we kind of get into wrap up and what we think about the whole thing?
No, I'm ready to.
Okay. Okay. So for me, when I first saw the stuff online, first off, the first thing I want to say, people are allowed and should question and want information about things like this.
I agree.
This event I run, event Dan runs, event Ledgestone, like literally from the most prestigious to some C tier in your backyard. You have every right to ask, to find out, to have complaints if you do it in a respectful way.
Yes.
There were a lot of posts, there were a lot of threads that a handful of people, you'd be able to see it if you go and look, you'll see it right away, of some people not affiliated with NADGT, but maybe ran some events or just are fans of the people running it, attacking, kind of not having a civil conversation with people who are just questioning things. So making comments like, if you weren't there, it doesn't matter, or it's over, get over it. Like that's not going to help things. If there was something really bad about this and people were like shunned for not talking about it, it's just going to keep happening. Right. You are in every right, if you're respectful, to ask questions, to try to get answers about this stuff, because that's how things get better. So for the people like saying not to do it,
there were a lot of posts that weren't respectful. So
yeah,
there is that.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
On both sides. So no, I agree with that. But I kind of my first take is like, you are in every right entitled to ask these questions if you have gripes or concerns. So for me, when I first saw these gripes and concerns and the conversations and the pictures and this and more importantly, nothing really showing from the NADGT side or people who I knew were there. I was asking them questions and they didn't know anything more than I did. So I had a lot of red flags. I was really concerned, and I started to think they gotta wait. Like something's going on here.
Right.
As we've dug more into it, after the conversation Dan had with Dave, working through everything, and hopefully a really good post by NADGT in the next day or so.
Yep.
I think they did everything and they could in the moment to try to do everything right. I do. I don't think there's anything malicious at all. I truly don't think that. I think that things were done a little poorly from a functionality standpoint, and that put them in bad positions and positions that they shouldn't have been in. And they coupled that with not correctly advertising it to people. Like, if I'm going to an event and I expect an X dollar amount player pack, if I'm not going to get that when I get my player pack, I want to know. Like, I want to know before I'm there. Send an email out to everybody at registration. Flat out say, hey, listen, guys, this is happening. This is why this isn't here. You're going to get it in this time. Sorry for the inconvenience, but here, like, and no one would have asked. And anyone who would have asked at that point would have been just stirring the pot and shouldn't have got responses because they already knew the right answers. But no one knew
Right.
answers because it wasn't told. A couple things that I also don't think were great. I think you need to state that it's not infinite payouts if it's not, when everything else has been to that point. Maybe that's not necessary, but it should happen. The other thing for me that I don't like is if you have a um, if you have a true amateur tournament, define a true amateur tournament. That's something that you should say ahead of time. Um, I think the payouts were incredible for like if it turns out that all these player packs were at least $350, counting food, which you should 100% count food in events. You just should. And the payouts were the way they were. Like, I mean, you can call it a true amateur event, but it wasn't. It was above that because payouts were incredible.
Yeah.
But for me, it's almost a situation of like you're presenting it as this thing, and then when it's not that thing and you don't warn people, you're gonna get really bad feedback in comparison to either not presenting it as what it is, or being very transparent. Like as soon as you knew you weren't gonna get bags and baskets to people or bags and backpacks, that should have been told immediately, and explain why and explain the process. And I don't think any of this happened. So I'm kind of going on, but for me, it's like an amazing event. I think like there was no complaints about the tournament itself, the courses, like all good things. Obviously, especially if you're a top guy who has a chance to win a lot of money, this event was amazing for you, no matter what the player pack was.
Yep.
Coverage on all these courses sounds like they spent a lot of money to get coverage, which is really awesome. But for me, if you just do a better job of explaining everybody knows it's a weird time right now. Everybody knows when they go on Innova's page, they can't get Firebirds or they can't get pigs. They get it. So like, if you just express it in a way that's professional and out there, I don't think this happens. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and my opinion's pretty similar to Mike's. After having a conversation, I think Dave kind of realized that he lacked in some of the transparency issues. And one thing he told me, he's like,
Oh,
I've
yeah,
never
we
I've
didn't
never
mention that.
is
So,
he did say that he missed out on, and verbatim, I quoted him. He said, I should have been more transparent about how the food was factored into the payout or the player pack. And there were some tickets involved and just a few different things that he wish he would have been more transparent about. And I think there should be something coming in the upcoming release from them. Um, but one thing he said is, I've never had to run an event for 1,300 people, and truth be told, it's never been done
yeah,
before ever at an amateur level.
yeah,
Um, and the hardest thing is unlike a pro event, these players aren't here to make like most of these players aren't here to make a living. Like this isn't their job. This is something they've had to work hard for and set aside this amount of money to go play and enjoy this event. For some of these guys, they're not here to win the big chunk of change. They're here for the experience. And from what I gather, the experience was good. The event was ran properly. There were courses were good. Everything like that was good. But the problem is you pay. I think the entry fee was what, 250 bucks.
at 200 for all divisions.
Right. So $200 as a player who it's not their job. This is something they're doing for fun and just trying to get a good experience. When you pay that $200 and then don't receive the full player pack right away and don't whether NADDT thought they did a good job or not at communicating this, it seems like people didn't understand. So um, they didn't get their full player pack, and they were just there's a lot of questions. So I think the transparency and being communicating better. One thing I enjoy and I think works really well is just send a mass email.
Yeah.
Like if people don't read their email, like that's their own fault.
Yeah. For me, like when I run an event and I have something that comes up or just anything I need to tell in general, I put it on the Facebook event, I put it on a mass email, and I put it in the appropriate local, like whatever, in
Right.
Facebook page. But the email, I mean, at the end of the day, you gave me your email. It's your responsibility to look at your email if you gave it to me. And it's that simple. One click of a button, 1,300 people get the same email, and everyone's going to understand the situation. So,
So I understand. You know, Dave did a really good job, and all of NADDGT, I can never say it properly, did a really good job at in this tough time putting an event together full for 1,300 amateur players, and like Mike said, really good for these up and coming players that got a nice paycheck and are going to be able to start playing professionally next year, and hopefully, see some of these guys on tour. I mean, the past winners, we see them on tour, and one of them is top 5, top
Yeah,
10 player right now. So
yeah.
I mean, these are guys we're going to see in the future. Um, but just a few things with logistics, and I did ask him a few questions about what things are going to look like next year, and he did say, I've done this once now, so next year is going to be a lot better. I understand a lot of the ins and outs now, and I'm going to try and do a much better job at some of the things that, because he was very aware that he did do some things poorly, and he wants to do better at those and do a better job for next year. And I think it will be improved next year.
Which, just to point out, I think there is a lot to say about him pretty much immediately responding and making the point to say, hey, call my personal number so we can have a conversation about this, to relatively nobody's in the disc golf world in the brand scheme of things. So for me, for him to be that willing to have a conversation shows that they want to make it right, in my opinion. So that's just one thing I'll say. Um, so that's kind of what we think about it. I know Dan like has a little bit of a this event aside, like gone, like we're done talking about it. That's our thought on it. The NADGT in itself, I know Dan has like even before all this happened, he's kind of like talked to me about. So, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the tour is great for young players that like went and won a lot of money, like Micah Groth, like Kelvin Pettit. If you want to go watch coverage, please do. It's really fun to watch. These guys are great players, but they're pretty much professionals. Like a lot of these kids are better than your local pros. Like these kids are the real deal. And one thing I do enjoy is that they are younger. Like this makes a lot of sense. But there's some older guys which I think are cool, but these guys are close to being professionals. And as an amateur tour, it feels kind of weird to go to a prestigious event like this and play for thousands of dollars, and the people are winning are already like pretty much professionals. Like they've been playing open for like the past year and just denying cash to win this event. So that's basically saying, "Hey, I'm a professional, but I'm going to wait until I can play an event that wins a lot of money before I say I'm a professional." And then you have this qualification system that not as good players can qualify for. And then you get pitched the idea like, hey, I just qualified for the National Amateur Disc Golf Championship. Like, I got to go to this. And then you do spend a hefty amount of money, which this isn't given to NADGT. Like, your trip to Texas does not have anything to do with them, but you do have to pay for that. You find a place to stay for a week, and that costs money, a lot of it. And I think the the actual entry fee is a reasonable price for the tournament, which is understandable. But it kind of preys on the player that's a little bit lower rated, not as good, that is coming for the experience where like you're not gonna win against these players that are almost ready to be touring professionals. So I think that's just a weird vibe for a tour. I personally, I'm not gonna play in those events. Maybe if I'm 990 and I'm still an AM, I will. But I don't find the value in doing that. And definitely at the skill level I'm at, you won't find me at these events.
I think
So
I, I hear what Dan's saying, and for me, I don't see it. Once you talk about big dollar signs, $10,000, 5,000 for second, like whatever, um, I can kind of see that stance a little. For me, I don't think it's really that much different than, like Worlds, for example. Um, there's a lot of people who've qualified for Worlds who have no business. They're never gonna even compete in
you don't have
Worlds.
to qualify for
Um,
Worlds, but
what's up?
you don't have to qualify for
I'm talking
Worlds.
about AMs. I'm talking about AM Worlds.
Oh, AM
I'm
Worlds.
talking about AM
Okay,
Worlds.
sure.
Especially in like a small state like South Dakota, for example, the actual criteria to qualify for Worlds, there's only gonna be like a few people who actually do that, and then the rest is just gonna be like at large, like people closest to the points. A lot of those. I mean, I'm looking here, and the lowest rated player in the Open division for the championship this weekend was 853. So probably a rec player, intermediate player,
Yeah.
and I get that. But is it that different than letting people play in the Memorial when we know that there's 10 guys who are going to win that, and that's it? Like that. I mean, it's up to you to make that decision. Be realistic with yourself. If you have a chance to win this, if you care, if you have a chance to win this. I mean, do we really think all 320 players in Open thought they had a chance to win?
No, and I definitely
So
understand that.
so for me, it's kind of just on you as a person to decide if I mean, I can go call myself a pro golfer, regular golf, and go play in a mini tour and not have to qualify and pay $5,000 to play in a tournament, and they're just taking my money. But if you want to be, in this awesome tournament, you want to play with these really good guys, you want to go travel, say you made it. A lot of people just love saying that they made it, and that's just a marketing thing, and that's smart. I mean, to me, at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide if you have a chance to. I mean, I get where you're coming from. I don't think it's that much different than other events, whether that be AM Worlds. US AMs is actually quite difficult to qualify for, so that's completely different.
Yes.
But for me, I just think that it makes it kind of feel weird when there's $10,000 to be played for by a kid who, I'll just click on him right now. He played like 12 open events this year. He won two of them.
Probably placed pretty well in them.
Got top 10 in all but like two. Like
right.
And one of them's a league, so but
that doesn't count.
So like if I go to this one that he won, he declined cash and it would have been about probably like $700. So he's no stranger to like high level disc golf. But if you're gonna make that decision to wait for this very specific thing, I mean, for me, I think it's fine. I think it does more good than bad for sure, in my opinion.
For sure, I agree.
But I do think it kind of relies on people being realistic with themselves, and we know that's not really the case in any sport. Everybody thinks they're better than they are and has a chance, and when they don't, so. But I think it just is what it is. I think it's good. I think it's great for these young up and comers. I think the model itself is actually quite good. Like we think of like a local guy that we both know who went and actually did cash, and it wasn't as much as he probably wanted to, and he did decline it. So but had he placed a little higher, got $1,000 or $2,000, that's enough money for him to pay for 10 open tournaments next year if he wanted to be a pro. So for me, I think it's okay. I like what they're doing. I like that it gives people the opportunity, whether you're young or you're an older guy, just making the jump. So overall, I think it's fine for me. But I see your points too. So
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it was super awesome to be able to give some of that information out, and again, props to Dave and NADGT for being willing to have a conversation with us. So
transparent and willing to talk.
Yep. It would have been really easy for them to just ignore us.
Oh, 110%.
Like super easy and pretty expected. So for them to answer, I think I will give them credit for that. I mean, that's mainly all we had, really. Just a couple random things just to wrap it up. The A tiers were announced a few days ago. For those of you that don't know, anyone can run a B or C tier with approval from their state coordinator. If you want to run an A tier, you must apply within the PDGA, mostly because they're like the most respected tournaments, and they need to be a certain distance away from each other each week. That's kind of the idea. So the list did come out. Showing our roots here a little bit, but South Dakota going to have their first ever A tier. Pretty exciting. Lewis and Clark Open. Super great tournament. It's been great for years. Those TDs are amazing. For me, like last year I ran an event and I really wanted to make it like the best possible South Dakota disc golf experience, and the standard's still Lewis and Clark, and especially now with them being an A tier, it's going to be the best tournament South Dakota's had ever probably, so hats off to them. I mean, most of this is just going to be kind of pertinent to your local area, but did you have anything, Dan, on the A tier stuff?
If you guys know anything of Paul Macbeth New London's course, they were trying to have a tier out there, which is Battle for Bedford. So if you know anything about Paul or Brody, you might know a little bit about this, but they didn't actually get A tier status this year, which raised a few questions for them, so that's always interesting. And I don't think we have time to get too deep into the logistics of that, but I'd assume there'll be an A tier within the next year or two, so I think that'll be good, and probably a Pro Tour event. I mean, I've heard great things about that course. So.
Yeah. That course is brand new. It's a baby, which makes me kind of think that's kind of why maybe they didn't pull the trigger this year, because I know in the past, like the specific details were 3+ years of an established event, but they kind of also mentioned that like an established event at the same courses, kind of.
Of course.
And that kind of makes me wonder, like they maybe had questions on like, because I know it's on like some surveyed land or something where they can't do certain things in certain places. So maybe they just had some questions there. And again, 3 years is pretty young for a. I mean, just an example. I know this isn't related, but like the Lewis and Clark Open's been a tournament for pushing 8 years now, probably. So some people were like, well, it's because they dog the PDGA so much on their podcasts and stuff. I would like to think that's not the case. Hopefully, it's not. Yeah, I mean that's the only reason we really thought of. Yeah.
PDGA.
So, and then the last thing we had written down here is just Disc Golf Pro Tour brought out. Disc Golf Pro Tour is gonna just be spoon feeding us some fun information all off season just to get us hyped up. There, you want to talk about good PR and good communication to fans and players, prime standard right there.
Yeah.
But they announced that they're gonna do something that actually golf does, and their season is going to start actually before the year starts. So the 2023 season is actually going to start at the end of 2022. And what that does is essentially makes there no off season, really. I mean, there's an off season if you want one. It looked like both of them are going to be Silver Series events.
Silver Series,
which
yeah.
is super common to how the PGA Tour works, to where you don't see most of the main guys at any of the events this time of year in the PGA, other than a few guys if it's close to where they are or they just want to get a couple events in. But this will give opportunity for some local people in those areas, or maybe people who need an opportunity, especially now that they're going to change the playoff format to you have to qualify to be in for next 3 events or whatever. Just extending the season. There's going to be more information with the tour cards and stuff coming out, so really exciting to see where that goes.
I think that'll be good. Really showing off what the Silver Series events are
Yes.
meant for. And, the big guys are going to be able to go home, rest, get their off season.
Yep.
And, some of those guys that are trying to make a name for themselves, they'll be able to grind out and make a name for themselves. So they'll be ready for tour, get that competition going. And, Silver Series Silver Series brings some solid players. And I'm sure there'll be coverage. Watch that. You'll find some new names.
Yeah.
You'll probably like some new people, and it's good disc golf. So I think it's doing what the Silver Series is meant to do, and I think it'll be good for disc golf. So
there's been some talk. Some people mentioned on some other podcasts that they'll see a situation where there'll be a point where like none of the top 20 guys ever play Silver Series eventually. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it'll be kind of like golf where you're going to have an opportunity to see some names you don't recognize and like a couple guys who just are in the area. If I have a hard time believing if Chris Dickerson gets to the point where he's only playing Elite Series and there's a Silver Series 45 minutes away from him when he's not playing an event for a month, he's probably going to play in it. And I think that's where it's going to kind of be, where it's a chance for these top guys to rest, but also there's something to be said for they want to play in events to stay sharp. So almost like it's not preseason because it's in the middle of the season, but like kind of just like tune-ups. But it definitely will give you opportunity to see people that you don't know and up-and-coming guys. We think about some guys who have had success on Silver Series or those mid-tier tournaments that have kind of worked their way up to the Elite Tour, and that's where you first saw them. So I think it's going to be awesome for sure. But
as these Silver Series, as money grows, if the Silver Series is close, you might as well go, especially if you're Chris Dickerson, because you probably win. So
I don't think we're that far off. I mean, we look at like what the prizes have been for elite events the last couple of years. Silver Series will be that eventually. Like there's gonna be
I
big
do believe
sponsors
so, yeah.
at those. So it's just gonna, as the Pro Tour evolves, that's gonna evolve too. So super exciting for sure.
Yeah,
you might see Dan at one of those Silver Series in a couple of years.
Like 1, maybe 2 years.
They're gonna.
I'll be there.
Just run a Silver Series here in South Dakota, and you can play in it.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. Well, I think that's all we had. Hopefully you guys found this interesting, helpful if you were part of it or wondering what was going on with the stuff. Again, hopefully they released something really transparent and very detailed. But yeah, I think that's all we have. So Dan, unless you got anything else, let's call her.
I think we're calling her.
All right.
Peace out, guys.
Thanks, guys.